Hi everyone, my name is Ms. Taylor from Little Dixie Regional Libraries, and thank you for joining me for our Cursive course series. This week is week 2, so if you're seeing this video first, you should go back and watch the other one that covers all of our wave letters so you're all caught up. But if you are ready for our spike letters, I'm going to clear the board and get us started in just a second. But before I do, a quick reminder that everything I'm covering today is in our practice packets that you can pick up at our Moberly Library. Everything that we talked about today is going to be in here, and there's going to be a couple extra exercises too. So make sure that you pick those up at the library. But for now, let's go ahead and dive in to our batch of letters for this week. So this week is all about our spike letters, which means we need to learn how to make the spike shape. This shape is going to show up in all of our letters, just like last week, our wave shape showed up in all of our letters too. So to make your spike form, you're going to start on your bottom line, and then you're just going to go at a little, almost like a hook motion, and go straight up to your midline, and then straight back down. And you will just do that over and over again. I like to do them in sets of 5 to warm up my hand. This week is also going to have some tall spike letters, think like a T. So a T for Taylor, ooh. For those, you go ahead and practice taking your spike form all the way up to the top line too. So this is our midline spikes, and for our top line spikes, we'll do the exact same thing. We're just going to take our shape all the way up to our top line. Ooh, that wasn't a very good one. You're going to take it all the way up to the top line, just like that. So I will let you practice those for a minute, and then we're going to talk about our first letter for this week, which is an I. So I'll see you in just a second for that. Now that we're done learning our spike shape, we're going to dive in and start our first letter for this week, which is going to be our I. Our capital I is going to be a little interesting, but our lowercase I is going to be very familiar. So we'll go ahead and start with our capital. For our capital cursive I, we're actually going to start on the right side of the letter. We're going to start on our bottom line here. So when we start, the motion we're going to do is going up to the left. We're going to make a great big loop right here. So go ahead and take that loop all the way up to the top line, all the way back down. You kind of want it to look like a standing fish. And then on the end of our fish, we're going to put a little hook up and then a little tail there. There we go. I like to put very big dramatic hooks on my letters. So mine actually goes almost all the way up to the midline. Let me try to take this one a little further. There, I think that looks a little better. I think it looks best when it ends about halfway between the midline and the bottom line. For our lowercase I, you have already been writing a whole ton of them, so it's going to be super easy. So for our first motion, we're going to start here at the bottom and then make that spike shape all the way up to the midline, and then take it back down and put that tail out there so the next line can connect into it. Then we will go back and we will add in the dot for our I. Now remember, whenever we're writing in cursive, the dot for that I is not going to go there until the very end of the word. So you'll write the whole word and then go back and put that dot. Just like that. Let's go ahead and practice that for a few minutes. I will clear the board and I will meet you for our next letter, which is, I think, the most important letter in the alphabet because it is the letter for my name. So I will see you in just a second. Our next letter, like I said, it's my favorite. It might be the most important one. Ooh, that was very bold to say, but I think I'm going to stand by it. It's the most important letter, and that is the T for Taylor. To make our capital T, we are going to first put a little line right here straight down. This is going to be the cross for our T. And from the bottom of this tiny little line, we're going to make a big tilde shape, a big kind of S curve going along the top line there. Then you will pick up your pen, the one time I'm going to let you do it, and from the middle of our T, just like on a print T, from the middle of our cross here, we are going to make kind of a great big hook. And then, of course, when we have a hook, what do? We put a tiny little worm on it. So that is our capital T in cursive. Ooh. That is our capital T in cursive. You can go ahead and practice that. But for our lowercase t, it's going to be just like our I was the midline spike shape, our T is going to be our spike shape that just goes all the way up to the top line. So we'll start here at the bottom, make our spike all the way up, and then take it right back down and add a little tail to it. And then at the end of our word, we will come back and we will come and cross that T. So, there we go. Go ahead and practice that for a few minutes. I will get us ready for our next letter. All right, our next letter is one that we previewed last week, and this week we're finally going to dive into it a little more, and that is our U. So, for our capital U, we are going to start a little bit below our top line, and then we will make a little like bump into our, touching our top line and then going straight down to our midline. It's a U, so we're going to make a great big U shape. Take that all the way back up to the top line, and then you're going to just trace back down. Oh my goodness, that went for an adventure. You'll trace that back down to your bottom line and leave a little tail over here. There we go. So now that we have our uppercase U, let's talk about our lowercase u because it can be a little weird. Whenever our U is starting a word like in umbrella, then it is going to look pretty much just like an uppercase one, just shrunk down. So we'll have our little bump into our start of our U, make our big U shape at the midline, and then take it back down like that. But if there's a letter before it, like remember last week we had Daoud and I think one of the other names, remember the tail of our Q from Quack connected in at the bottom. So to have your U connect into letters before it, you're actually going to make two spike shapes back to back. So you'll take your first spike to your midline and then take it back down to the bottom and then up to your midline again and then put your tail on it. So on your practice sheet, you'll see this U written two different ways. That's why that's happening. Because when it's connecting into something, you're going to have it just be the two spikes. But when it's starting out, we want it to be a little fancy. So we throw a little tail on the front there to give it a little something extra. But that is our U shape. You can go ahead and practice all three versions, and then I'll meet you back for our W, which is going to be pretty similar to what we've just done. So I will see you there in a second. All right, now that we have mastered our U, let's go ahead and start on our W. So a W, as you might expect, is very, very similar to a U. You will start with our bump in at the beginning, just like on our U. So a little bump here, and then all the way down to our bottom line. And then I'm going to take it up to the midline, and I'm going to do a spike right there. I will follow back down my spike, and then make another U shape all the way up to our top line. And then we're going to put a little tail on our spike there. There we go. Make sure when you're doing this spike on your W, or this tail on your W, you want it to be going under like that, not over like the bump, because it's not going to look like a W. It's going to be really hard to read. You want it to be going under like that. It matters a lot more on your lowercase w's. So let's go ahead and dive into that now. Your lowercase w's, just like your u's, have two different forms on your sheet. The first one is the form for whenever it starts the word, like in right or welcome. So we will start with our bump at the beginning, and then we'll make our scoop shape, our U shape, and we're going to take that spike up to the midline, and then trace back down that and make another scoop up to our midline, and then add a tail on that. So it's just like, let me try that again. It is just like your uppercase one, is just a little shorter. The other form is going to be whenever your W is at the end of a word or in the middle of a word, like in now. So let's do it now. You will start with a spike shape from your, I'm going to write it down here, not on the red and blue. You'll start with your spike shape up to your midline, and then make a scoop into another spike, and then another scoop into a third spike, and then you're going to put your tail right there. This tail works just like it does on your O, where the next letter is going to connect at the midline instead of going all the way back down to the bottom line, because then it's going to look like you have a really weird looking U and not a W. So go ahead and practice your W's for a minute. We just have 2 letters left this week. I promise they're both super fun. So I'll meet you there in a second, and we will go ahead and finish up this week. So we have 2 letters left. Our first one is going to be a P. So for our capital P, we're going to start with a little hook in, like that, up at the top line here. And then we're going to make a straight line all the way down to the bottom line. And then you'll trace back up that line, and you're going to make the circle for your P up in this top half here. And to make it cursive and make it fancy, you're going to take your circle all the way back to your straight line here, and then add a little tail right there inside of the circle. Oh, goodness. There you go. You might also sometimes see a P written like that. So just keep an eye out for that. I think that this form is a lot easier to learn. It looks a lot closer to the print version, but just so that you're prepared for it, you might see this version with the extra loop there on the straight line. So that is our capital P. Let's go ahead and do our lowercase now. So you will start with your spike shape on the bottom line, going up into the midline, and then we're going to take our straight line down past the bottom line, just like you do for the print. There we go. Ideally, these are not, those are like connected like that. They're not so separated, but that's okay, we're learning. But you'll do your spike and then go down past your bottom line and then trace it back up to make the circle for your P, just like you do for print. But we need to be able to connect into the letter after it, right? So let's go ahead and add a tail on there. You're going to take your tail from the end of your P right here, and you're going to go under this shape. You don't want to cut through the circle, you want to go under it, just like that. So, oh, I just did exactly what I told you not to do, didn't I? My goodness. There we go, that's better. So you can go ahead and practice your lowercase p and your uppercase P. Take a few minutes, and then I will meet you for our final letter of the week whenever you are done. We have one letter left for this week, and that is going to be our J. So for our capital J, you're going to start at your bottom line here, and then we're going to make a great big teardrop shape just like we did for our I. Make great big teardrop, great big loop all the way back down to your bottom line here. Then we're going to go past your bottom line. We're going to make another teardrop with a tail on it, just like the bottom of our G. That's going to be the bottom of our J. It's going to be the bottom of our lowercase j in a second too. So starting at the bottom line and then a great big loop up to the top, and then past the bottom line for our teardrop tail. For your lowercase j, you are going to start with our spike form. So you'll start at our bottom line and then spike up to our midline. And then you will take that down past the bottom line and then to the left to add a teardrop and then a tail going up past the bottom line, just like for your G or for your capital J. And then when you get to the end of your word, you will go back and you will add the dot for your J. So go ahead and practice those. After you're finished practicing your J, you have mastered all of the letters for this week. So we will move on to our words in just a moment. As a reminder, we do have all of the letters that we're covering this week with some bonus practice trying to combine our different letters in our practice packets that are available at the Moberly Library. But let me go ahead and get our board cleared off. We'll go over a couple of the words that are in your packet and then finish up with our names for this week. So I will meet you in just a second. All right, now that we have mastered our spike letters for this week, let's go ahead and try putting some of them together. So there are a whole bunch of words on your practice sheet that you can practice with. You can try to come up with your own words and make sure that you're using letters from last week too, so that you don't forget them. But I have a couple that we'll practice together. The first one I'm going to write is what I think is the most fun word of the week, and that is going to be tutu, like a ballerina and her tutu. So for that, we're going to start with our T. So starting at our bottom line and going all the way up to our top line, then going back down and scooping into our U. That's going to go to the midline. Remember, since it's connecting in from the letter before it, it's going to have the spike shape, not the bump shape. So a spike for our U, and then scoop into another spike, and then we will make another tall spike for our next T. Take that back down to another little spike for our U, and then finish up our U here at the end. Lots and lots of spikes for our tutu. And whenever we are finished writing, we can go back and find our tall spikes and cross those to make them T's. And now we have spelled a word instead of just drawing shapes. So that is our first word for this week. That's tutu. I think we'll do one more word together, and then we're going to dive into our names. So let me. Ooh, there we go. So that's all clear. Let's do our longest word for this week, if I'm remembering right. And that is going to be utopia. Ooh, I wanted to go over utopia with you because it has a couple of our letters from last week. So let's put everything together. Utopia is U-T-O-P-I-A, like that. It is an idyllic society, is a utopia where everything's perfect. So since our U is starting our word, let's go ahead and do our fancy starting U with our bump on it. So we're going to do a bump at our midline, then scoop down into a spike for the other half of our U, just like that. Then we will spike up to our top line, go back down, and then we're going to go into a wave for our O from last week. Remember, our O, we will add a little swirl here at the top, and then that will be a tiny little baby spike for our P. Remember, our P will go under here, and then the spike into our I, and then one last wave into our A like that. And then after we are finished, we can go back, we can dot our I and cross our T, and there we have it, utopia. Like I said, go ahead and practice some more words, practice words that you can think of with all of our letters from the last couple weeks, and then we will, I'm gonna go ahead and clear the board, and I will meet you in a second for our names. Our names are a little weird, so we're gonna do all of those together, and then we will go ahead and I will let you practice on your own for next week. All right, now that we have mastered our letters, we've tried putting them together with our words, let's go ahead and try writing some names. So our first name for this week, starting with our capital I, is going to be the name Iwa, which is from Japan. That is spelled I-W-A. So our A from last week, our I and W from this week. So for our capital I, remember, we're going to start on the right side of the letter. We're going to go up to the left to make our big loop all the way up to the top line. Then we'll make a hook over on the left side of the letter and then put a little worm on the hook too. So for the rest of the name, we're going to do our W. Let me double check how I have written it for you on your sheet. Yes, perfect. Since this I is away over here, I don't like to connect my I into my other letters, so my W, I'm just going to start with a bump at the middle. So we will start with our bump and then our 2 spikes for our W. Remember, our W finishes at the midline. So we'll put our tail going down like this into a little half wave for our A, and then taking that all the way around back to the midline, and then finishing with a nice little tail at the bottom line. So that is our first name for this week. It's one of my favorite anime characters, so I had to get him in there. So go ahead and practice that on your own. I'll meet you for our second name after I clear the board. Okay, for our next 2 names, we've reached the weekly disclaimer where I'm going to try my best to pronounce them, but I am not 100% confident. I've tried to find recordings. I've done the best I can. But our first one that we're going to do together is Tajai, which is from the Akan language, which is spoken in Ghana. But it is spelled T-A-J-A-I. So starting with our capital T, the most important letter, we will start at our midline and take a straight line down, and then do our little tilde shape like this, our little wiggle. From our middle, we will put a great big hook on it all the way down to the bottom line. And then our hooks will always end with a little worm on them. Put a little tail on there too. All right, so now we can go into the rest of our word, starting with our A. I'm going to do just half of the wave on my A. I'm not going to start at my bottom line. I'm going to go ahead and start at my midline because I think it looks a little nicer. So I'm going to start at my half wave just below my midline and take that around to make my A. Ooh, that is being very squeaky. Then a spike up to our midline for our J, down below into our teardrop tail, into our wave for our next A, and then our last spike for our I. Now that we're done writing the whole name, we can go back and we can dot our J and our I, and there is Tajai. There we go. All right, so 2 down, 4 to go. Let me clear the board. We have one more name from Africa, and then the remaining names will all be English-based names. So let's go ahead and I'll clear the board and I'll meet you for our next one. For our U name, we have another short name. It is going to be Uju, which is from the Igbo language that's spoken in Nigeria. It is going to be spelled U-J-U. Like I said, a real quick one. So our capital U, remember, we're going to start with a little bump at our top line, take it all the way to our bottom line, and then spike up to our top line, and then take that back down and finish with a tail at the bottom. Our tail, since it is finishing at our bottom line, it can connect right into our J. So you can take that up to your midline like that, then go straight down and make your teardrop for your J. And then you're going to spike in for your last U. You're not going to do a bump, you're going to spike since it's connecting to the letter before it. We'll scoop for the rest of our U and then end with the little tail there. And after you've written the whole name, you can go back and you can dot your J right there. So that is the name Uju. And we are flying through this week. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'm sure you're doing fantastic, but we just have 3 names left. I'm going to clear the board. We're going to finish strong. For our W name this week, the name I have picked is Wit. And the way I'm going to be spelling it is W-H-I-T-T, like it's short for Whitney. So for our W, remember we're going to start with a bump at our top line, just like our U. And then we're going to scoop into a spike that's going to stop at our midline. And then scoop back out all the way back up to the top. We'll stick our landing at the top and then put a little tail on it, just like that. Remember, you're going to go down, not over for your tails. For the rest of them, we did our, let's see, have we done an H yet? I think I might have lied to you guys. I think we have a preview letter. Let's go ahead and learn how to do our H together. We're going to go over it in more depth next week, but let's go ahead and learn it now. So for our H, you're going to start at your bottom line, and we're going to make our loop shape. That's going to be our shape next week. But you've already been kind of making loops. So you're going to go at kind of an angle to make a great big teardrop that goes all the way up to your top line. And then you're going to bring that straight down to make the line of your H. Then when you get to the bottom of your H, you're going to just make the bump on your H like you're used to from your print. You're just going to add a little wiggly tail on it at the end to make it a little fancy. So let's use that for our Wit name. So again, we're going to start at our bottom line and then scoop all the way up to the top and make a nice little loop here that we're going to take straight down to our bottom line. Then we will add a bump up to our midline and then take that back down to the bottom line and add a nice little tail that's going to go straight into the spike for our I. That's going to come down and go straight into the spike for our T. And then we will go ahead and throw a second T at the end too. Now that we're finished, we're going to cross our T's and dot our I. And that is Wit. Here we go, just a quick little preview of next week. You guys got it. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we're going to have another letter with another name with our H in it, so you'll get another practice too. But let me go ahead and clear the board, and we will go into the most fun name of the week for sure, for our penultimate name of the week. Okay, I promised a fun name, and I'm going to deliver because our almost last name is Pippi, as in Pippi Longstocking. To write Pippi, it is spelled P-I-P-P-I. All letters that you have done this week, they should be fresh. So for our capital P, we're going to make a little hook at the top line, then straight down to the bottom, and then go back over your steps to make our great big circle down back to our midline. And then we'll finish with our tail right there in the middle to make it cute. Then, for the rest of our name, we will start at the bottom line for our I and spike up to our midline. Then go back down and spike up again for our P. That's going to go all the way down past our bottom line. I made that really long, my goodness. And then go back up, trace over what you've already written to go back up to the midline to make the circle part for our first P, our first lowercase p. Then remember, you're going to go under this shape with your tail and take that straight up to the midline for our second P. And you'll do all of that again. That one got really wiggly, didn't it? And then you'll take your tail out and spike it up to the midline for your last I. And you'll go ahead and dot those I's when you're done. Whew, that does not look very nice, does it? Let me write it again. I'll write it up here so I can write it a little bigger. There we go. That looks a little better. It's hard to write nice when you're writing slow. But we have just one name left. So go ahead and practice Pippi, and then I'll meet you for our final name of the week. You guys are doing awesome. Okay, our last name for the week does have our preview H again, and that is going to be Judith. So I'm spelling that as Judith. So we have our D from last week and our H from next week. But our first one is going to be our J, our capital from this week. So that is going to start at the bottom line. Remember, it's just like your I. It's going to go to the left first, not to the right first. So we're going to go to the left, make a great big loop, and take that all the way to the bottom line. Then go past the bottom line and add your tail right there. And then since this is finishing at the bottom line, we can go ahead and connect it straight into our U. So we'll take our U into a spike at our midline and then scoop that into another spike. There is our U, she's beautiful. And then we will take that into our wave for our D from last week. Then spike into the I, spike into the T, and then we'll do our loop for our H. Remember, that loop's going to come straight down, and then add the bump for your H and nice little tail at the end. When you are finished, you can go back and you can dot your I and cross your T. Oof, what happened to my H over here? My goodness gracious. Hopefully yours looks a little neater than mine. Obviously, I need to do some practice on my handwriting too. But those are all of our names, all of our words, all of our letters for this week. We are all done. You guys have done fantastic. Go ahead and practice for a few minutes, and then I'll meet you for our outro in just a second. All right, you guys, great job. We are all finished for this week. As a reminder, this class is brought to you by Little Dixie Regional Libraries, and you can come and pick up your practice packets, which look a lot like this, at our Moberly branch. We have all of our practice packets here, and they have everything that I've gone over in the video, as well as some extra exercises to get you a little more comfortable with writing in cursive. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week for our loop letters, and then we are flying through. We're almost done. So go ahead and keep practicing. Happy writing, and I will see you very soon. Thank you.